is a remarkable individual whose journey has been filled with dedication to education, service to his community, and a profound commitment to making a difference in the lives of others. And he's a proud graduate of Oakwood University, where he earned degrees in accounting and business administration. Mark and his wife Vivian have remained devoted supporters of Oakwood, lending their support to various causes both during their time at the university and in the years since. Before his return to Oakwood, Mark gained professional experience at the South Atlantic Conference and the Northeastern Conference as Seventh-day Adventist, as well as the Big Four accounting firm KPMG in New York City and Amnesty International USA. Currently, he holds the position of Deputy Assistant Secretary for Management and Planning in the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education at the U.S. Department of Education. In this pivotal role, he oversees policies, programs, and funding that impact the elementary and secondary education field, managing an extensive grant portfolio of over $27 billion annually. Outside of his professional endeavors, Mark dedicates his time to serving his community as a volunteer firefighter, EMTB, at the Capitol Heights Volunteer Fire Department in Capitol Heights, Maryland. Additionally, he volunteers as a youth mentor in the Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated's Guide Right program, and he serves as a board member on Kappa Scholarship Endowment Fund. Mark is deeply involved in his church, serving as a deacon and safety officer at the Capitol Hill Seventh-day Adventist Church in Washington, D.C. Family plays a central role in Mark's life. With his wife Viv, an educator, right by his side, and two adult children, Paige McLean Diaz and Mark Ryan, also an Oakwood alum, they embody the spirit of service and commitment to others. It defines their lives as well as their careers. Your 2024 Oakwood Honorees honoree, Mark Washington.
Oakwood Honors, presented to Mark Washington for commitment to philanthropic initiatives and service to Oakwood University. Presented by Oakwood University and the Office of Alumni Relations, March 29, 2024, God first. Congratulations, Mark. Let's put his hands together again. Mark Washington.
I am truly grateful. You know, you have a whole bunch of stuff that you want to say, right? And I have to be careful what I say. We have ethics people that watch what we do. So I had all this stuff planned out, and then I just looked in the audience and saw my 92-year-old aunt, who somehow must have gotten on a plane and they came here. What in the world? We call her in D.C. the governor of D.C. because she's in charge of everything wherever she is. Anyway, I'm very grateful for this, Doc. I'm grateful to you, to Emil, to Oakwood, and I'm grateful to God for his mercy and his grace. I'm gonna tell the quick story and I'll get down. I know the Beatitude says, blessed are the brief, so they should be invited back. The Lord showed me everywhere I've gone, he's provided a village. And that matters because I have a wonderful family, as you can see in my aunt. But also I have some cousins here, and I have extended family that we've been together since I was 13, 14 years old, even before that. The narrator is a childhood friend. Her husband was my big brother, who preceded me in Pine Forge and cleared the way. Mary Battles that works for you, and Charles Battles were mentors to me that I can't even tell you how important they were. And all of this began for me when I was born to two teenagers, one of whom, my mother, died 3 days after I was born. In the waiting room was Frances Bliss, Dr. Frances Bliss, and her husband. And my grandmother and her sisters took me. They just took me like Jochebed and Mary. In their 40s and 30s, they just took me. My grandmother, to come to Oakwood, my grandmother had to go to court because she just took me. She never signed any papers. And so we had to go before a judge so that she could be declared capable as my guardian to sign for me. My grandmother she worked to provide, but she never had much. And yet she didn't stop me from dreaming. When I saw Paul at Pine Forge, I said, I want to go. And the village there, along with the battles, was now I got Big Brother Metley, and Big Brother Samson, and names that you all know, and Big Sister Pinckney, that they've been with me almost 50 years. Just talking about villages, Doc. My grandmother had nothing more to give me when I was ready to come to Oakwood but $20 and a Bible. Amen. And she apologized for not having it. I am so grateful. I came here, I had people named Wells, I had people named McClendon, I had people named Mims who would take care of us. Neat McClendon was like the mother I never had. She did so much for students, and I was so honored to come back here as a financial aid director while she was the director of student accounts. I'm grateful, Doc. I am so grateful. There's so many, you shouldn't call names, but I lived in Atlanta. The Lord gave me the Marshalls. I lived in New York. He gave me the Guys, the Phipps. In Pittsburgh, the Petersons, the Reeds, they all shaped me. And then I get to New York and all their families there, and they just surrounded me and my wife. I'm grateful to my wife and my family. She is just... I have some goofy ideas of things that I'm thinking we can do this or that. And she's an educator, she's a professional, she can be standing here in her own right. And she has supported me. I have friends, 50-year friends. Pearl Johnson, India Medley. They were headed out of the country. Laura Davis, they came here. Villages, Doc. I'm grateful. Last thing I'll tell you, just in case anybody is struggling in the way that I was when I left Oakwood, and you know about this. I didn't graduate from Oakwood with my class, with Emil, because of something that happened bizarrely in a class that no one could do anything about. And I was angry, I was hurt, and I was bitter with Oakwood. Easily 10 years. I was a member of the board, and I was angry sitting on the board. And I thank God, Villages, for Paul Monk and Sheila Jackson Lee, and Lois was coming at that time, to help me to understand service trumps bitterness. And what we think are problems almost always are just God's providence, in which He's the only one that has the provisions. Right? We heard the preacher preaching about promises tonight. And I realized at some point I had to stop being bitter. And I never thought that I would come back here to work. But God has a funny sense of humor. And He helped me to see that, this school, kind of like our Constitution, is a piece of work, but a piece of art. It is always in the process of perfecting itself. And it works its way through each of us. And what it can be because of God's mercy, but also because of us. God helped me to understand there are 2 printed names on my diploma. One is mine, the other is Oakwood's. And if I work at it, I can lift it up, or I can put it down. But guess what? I'm there, whichever I do. I'm linked to it. I can't get away from it. That's just what it is. And so I'm grateful for this. I'm sorry to take so much time, but there's so many people lifting up the name of Oakwood wherever they are. There's 10 of me's, time 10 more. There's Ajwa in Arizona doing surgeries with robotics. There's Lloyd Henry, who's running global triathlons. He's a world-class triathlete. And he's running in the name of Oakwood. Todd Sterling is here. I saw him tonight. He was the medical doctor to Navy SEALs. Like, there are just so many people. Nia Langley is in DC providing legal services for the indigent and those who are impoverished. There are so many people doing stuff for Oakwood, and you never hear of them. And so I encourage you all to keep doing this and find those other stories. And I'm grateful that somehow you thought enough to include me. And on behalf of my family and my grandmother, thank you. One last thing. My aunt's gonna get me. Cornell Evans was my godmother and my great aunt. She was in the class of 1933. She also worked, I think, with Mrs. Burgess. They worked at NASA. Doc, they were the early NASA computers. They both worked with and for Dr. Von Braun. My aunt didn't talk about this until about 2 years before she died. And she and her husband also poured into me as my godparents. They were both educators. And they made certain that when it just didn't fit, that it could happen. Along with a great man in my church, Dr. Herman Reed. I just would be remiss to not mention these names because villages, Doc, it's the only reason I'm standing here today. Thank you.